But then she really got him together in the house in Florida when she was going in on him. And she was like, yeah, and you got these kids showing up. Your other kids. I was like, other kids? Oh my God. Richard, what you doing with these other kids? But he still was willing to stand up to all of these guys and made it known that his daughters, sorry y'all, you know, he made it known that he was going to protect his daughters. Despite that, regardless of how the world treated him, he knew that training them to create careers for themselves was going to be the ticket for them to be respected in the world, especially as black women, where oftentimes black women are the most disrespected in the world. Hello, divine ones, it's your girl Narisse, and welcome to my channel, The House of Divinity, where I am the mother queen of the House of Divinity, and all creatives and, you know, black sheeps and loners or people with opinions or who love the arts or need a little bit of motivation and empowerment are welcomed here and are loved and respected. This is a safe space, and I mean that. It's not just a YouTube channel. I take that seriously. So this is a space where you can feel seen and heard, and we can discuss different things like the arts and stuff like that. So with that said, we're gonna get this intro going. When you're an eccentric person with your own sense of style, beliefs, talents, flaws, and a mysterious cosmic energy, you are often misunderstood. We realize it's okay if we didn't fit into other solar systems because we were supposed to create our own. We will find and build a tribe of like-minded individuals. So, to the divine ones out there, welcome to the House of Divinity. In this particular video, I will be discussing King Richard, but I won't be getting into too much of the storyline. I'm just going to be talking about points that stood out for me and different gems and lessons that I felt like are really important moments to discuss for a little bit of empowerment tea. Alright, y'all. So let's get into it. We just going to jump right in. So, 11 minutes into this movie, I did not expect my reaction to happen how it did, because I'm really not that much of an emotional person. I guess I have been more these days because I'm more in tune with my emotion and how like things make me feel and going off that versus logic so much and trying to find a happy medium between the two. But when it comes to movies and art and stuff like that, I often get emotional and like cry and whatnot. But this movie in particular, I did not expect to be like bawling or weeping for this movie. And mind you, I don't really cry a lot. I'll cry for movies in front of people, but I won't cry about my own situation in my life in front of people. Unless it's like, you know, like my family or like, you know, somebody that I'm really close with. But aside from that, like, I just be like, you know, crying to myself. But the reason why, right, that I was just like so emotionally like vulnerable in that moment was because of several things that happened, right? In that moment that kind of like stirred up the emotions, right? Richard was training his girls at the tennis courts in Compton. And there was like a gang of guys outside, and one of the guys was hitting on the oldest daughter, who I believe was like 16 at the time. And so he's like, girls, get in the car. And then he goes up to the guys and he's like, look, she's a kid, leave her alone, you know, just leave her be. And they're like, oh, what you gonna do, this and that, whoopie woo, you know, and basically like hit him. And, you know, and the girls are just watching like, oh my gosh, what is this? And afterwards, he goes in his car and he's driving home, and one of the daughters asked like, Dad, are you okay? Because they were all just sitting there and it was really awkward. And he was saying, you know, all his life he had to fight.
All my life I had to fight.
And basically he was saying like, you know, I've had to fight police, I've had to fight the Ku Klux Klan. And part of me was kind of feeling like, because he didn't like fight back or anything like that. He just kind of like took the hit, fell to the ground, and just like got up and went about his day. But he was like, you know, and I thought he was going to say, I've had to fight the Ku Klux Klan and the police, and, you know, I've gotten to a point where I don't want to have to fight my own people. That's not where he went with that. But he did say, you know, all my life I had to fight, and I didn't have a dad to stand in between me and these fights, you know, and even though the world has disrespected me, y'all gonna be respected, you know. And that just kind of like opened my heart, and, you know, I was like inundated with tears. It was just a bit much for me for several reasons, right? And I wanted to make sure I point them out because I feel like they're very important things to talk about. One, because of his own experience of feeling unprotected in his youth and in his life, where he didn't have somebody stand up for him, he made sure that he was going to be there to stand up for his daughters. All 20 of them. You know, he stood up for his daughters, which was a beautiful thing to see. And even though he was outnumbered, it was like a group of them, and it was one of him, but he still had the audacity to go up to them and say, leave my daughters alone. She only 16 years old. You know, and he knew he probably wouldn't have won that fight, but he still was willing to stand up to all of these guys and made it known that his daughters, sorry y'all, you know, he made it known that he was going to protect his daughters despite that. And his whole thing was that regardless of how the world treated him and looked at him, he knew that training them to play tennis, to create careers for themselves, was going to be the ticket for them to be respected in the world, especially as black women, where oftentimes black women are the most disrespected in the world. So seeing that really touched me. And he was really the epitome of somebody who saw the importance of legacy and pushing the bloodline forward. And although his father might not have been there to protect him, he was able to be there to protect his daughters and set them up to be in a better space in life. And that really got me emotional just because of like my own situation and, you know, just having moments of, you know, being a black woman disrespected in the world and, you know, just trying to find your way and hone my craft and, you know, create my own ticket to create a better life, not only for myself, but for my family and, you know, the family that I will create at some point, you know. And then having moments where you feel protected and feel not protected, like I've dealt with that, you know. So that really got me emotional, because there's been times where I felt like, you know, like, not that I don't have a support system. Like, I have a support system, you know. I know there's people who love me and support me genuinely, you know. Like, my parents are very much a part of my life, and I know they intended to do the best things for me, You know, but there's certain battles that you have to face on your own as you get older, and you don't have your parents to always protect you. And it just made me think about my own life, which is a whole nother story. I might do a story time about that. Let me know in the comments if y'all want to hear my life story. It's not going to be a whole life story thing, but more so specifically just about like finding my way. Whereas I know my mom wanted to protect me when I was younger, but wasn't able to because she developed a mental illness, which is a whole thing. And, in that experience of knowing that all she wanted to do was protect her children and not be able to, really got me emotional. And then, with my father doing the best that he could to not only protect me, but protect other members of my family as well. And, the journey through that, it really made me emotional because it made me look at my own situation. And, and just made me look at myself and just know that I totally felt what he said. Whereas in certain situations where you feel unprotected in the world and you feel like the world is disrespecting you and testing you and, and like you gotta fight everything and everybody. But knowing that because you went through that, you know that you don't want your kids to go through that. And that's like all I ever want in my life. Of course I want to follow my dreams and be an artist and create music and sing, but I really want to do it because of I want to inspire people. And I want to create a life where my kids don't have to go through the shit that I had to go through, or that my mom had to go through, or what my dad had to go through, and really create a life for my kids where they're respected, and they can live the life that they want to live. Of course, adversity is going to happen. It makes you tough. It builds character, but it's certain battles that aren't necessary, especially within your own people. When you're fighting generational curses from people who are within the family bloodline causing said generational curses, it's like, or don't know how to, or I won't say like causing, but like, everybody's goal isn't the same for a bloodline. Let's just say that. And, and I totally identified with what he was saying, like just wanting to be there for his kids and wanting to protect them and wanting the best for them and to create a life where they were the best at what they did. I had the utmost respect for that. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit and then, get to the rest of the points. I think there was a moment that felt like foreshadowing when I watched it and ultimately became true because Venus and Serena were a success. But there was a moment right before they were going to bed and he was telling the girls, like, one day you guys might get a check for $1 million where you could buy whatever bed that you want. Because they were like in bunk beds. Two of them was like sharing a bed, and he was like, one day you'll get a check for $1 million. And that ended up kind of being like a foreshadowing moment in the film. And I thought, I peeped it when I watched it and I was like, let me make note of this. And it leads to something else that I want to talk about later on in the review. And something that I really loved about Richard was that he was a man with a vision. He was a believer. He was a big dreamer, and he was all about his plan. He was a man with a plan. And, and I felt like that was important for his daughters to see because sometimes the things that stop people from their greatest potential is not even seeing the potential within themselves, not even having the mind open enough to see that your dreams could be bigger than what you're thinking, and he had a mind to know we can dream bigger than this. we can get to where the best people are and we can be better. And I love that about him. And something else that I thought was really good about Richard was that he took the time to instill values into them. You know, sometimes his method wouldn't be like the best. Like, for example, there was a moment where he was teaching his girls to be humble and learn humility because they started participating in the junior tournaments and they was whooping everybody, and so they was real hype and celebrating and cheering, and he was going to have them walk home because they was bragging. But I get where he was coming from, but I didn't like that particular method. But he was bragging, I mean, he was trying to teach them not to be so big-headed, and regardless of whether you're winning or whether people are shitting on you, to have a level head and be humble. And I felt like that was the most important thing about him having the girls watch Cinderella, because even though the girls were up in that moment, like they was winning, they watched Cinderella because Cinderella was a girl that people overlooked and underestimated and treated like shit. But regardless of how people treated her, she was still humble. And she still had a good heart. And that I think that was a very important thing that he said too. Like, she had a clean heart. And that's what y'all need to have throughout your careers as you elevate in this industry and in this league. And then also another thing that was important, like with him being a man with a plan and him having the posters of like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Like quotes like that. I love that. I'm all about that type of thing. Like the quotes and the motivational and the, you know, the affirmations and stuff like that. So to see him kind of incorporate that in his training with the girls was really cool. And I felt like that's really important to do early, like really young, like instilling values, like being humble, you know, being a big dreamer, having a vision, having a plan, working hard, having a work ethic, being sharp in school, you know, and still having time to be a kid. Like, I felt like all of those things that he was trying to instill into his daughters was so important. And it was beautiful to see that, especially as a black man, because there's that stereotype that black men aren't in the households, or, you know, there's always like the single mom narrative. But there are black men out there who are showing up the best that they can with what they know or what they have experienced, and are doing the work to uplift and provide for their kids. And so to see him do that in a way where he not only teach them to think big, but also motivated them to have good character as people is important. Okay, so let's like fast forward into Venus kind of getting to a point where like she has different like coaches looking to bring her as a part of their camp. And so I thought the negotiation with the coach from Florida was a really good scene, because he might have went into it thinking that they're selling themselves to be a part of his, you know, his camp, to be trained and whatnot. But Richard was also interviewing him, because he did kind of like a fear loss moment where he was like, well, how you feel about this other coach? Because, you know, basically if it don't work out with you, we gonna go to this other coach. But he knew the value of his daughters to know that they're the prize. You know, it's not the coach that's the prize. I mean, yes, it helps to the journey, but his daughters are the ticket. They're the prize. And so he made the coach a little bit like thirsty to want to sign them, because the coach saw their talent and saw their potential, and he saw their value. But the thing is, Richard and his girls already knew that. And I think the lesson there that's really important is knowing your worth. And especially whether it's a job or like a dating experience and you have to negotiate, it's not just you selling yourself. I mean, yes, you have to do that, but they have to sell themselves to you too. You know, they have to prove why they're worthy of you giving your time and your energy, you know. And also aside from them like paying you, like, you know, you have to have your standards and your requirements, which is what he had. And he was like, okay, yeah, that's cool that you have this list of requirements. We have this list of requirements too. And so he had already had that prepared. So having those things when you go into like an interview or go into like a relationship, and having a standard and having expectations of what, not necessarily, I don't want to say expectations, but having requirements of what you need out of the negotiation and what you need out of the deal. Like, okay, in the dating situation, like, okay, say if you're dating, saying I'm dating to eventually marry, and this is my love language, so I look for these things. These are the things that I personally want out of my relationship. And having that already set in stone will save you a lot of time and energy when you're talking to people just trying to catch a vibe, because some people might not even be on the same level as you, and you might end up being in a situation where you're wasting your time, and or they don't even have the same like standards or wants as you. And same thing as a job. Say you go into a job and you're thinking like, okay, I need a job, I need an opportunity, but it's also an opportunity for them to have you. You know, you're the prize anywhere that you go. So, you know, when it comes to your skill set and what you bring, you should also have a set of things that you require for them to do and for them to meet you at your wants. Okay. So something that I wanted to talk about too was his relationship with his wife, Brandy. And I felt as though there were moments where I wish she'd have spoke up more. Like, she would kind of keep him together for the most part, but there were times where I felt like she could have like went in on him a little bit more. Like when they separated from the first coach that was willing to help them out for free for a period of time, who was played by Fitz from Scandal, Tony Goldwyn, I believe is his name. I'll write it up here if I mess that up, so I'll double check, because I don't be trying to play about people's names. But you know, in that moment, she was like, you made this decision, but you didn't, not only did you not negotiate it with me or talk to me about it, you didn't even talk about it with your daughters. You're making all these decisions for them, and they're old enough to make their own decisions. You know, I mean, and granted, he had their lives planned out before they were even born. So part of me is feeling like, okay, what if these girls ain't even really want to do tennis like this? You know? But I felt like he had trained them to see themselves as winners and see themselves as successes, that they learned to love the sport. But part of me is thinking like, if you had this planned since before they were born, what if they ain't really want to do this? What if all of them was just like, Dad, tennis ain't it? You know, part of me was feeling like that, but I mean, it worked out. So, hey, he knew something. But anyway, she got him together in that moment there. But then she really got him together in the house in Florida when she was going in on him. And she was like, yeah, and you got these kids showing up. Your other kids. I was like, other kids? Oh my God. Richard, what you doing with these other kids? Yeah, she got him together in that scene. And, you know, I was waiting for that moment, because I was kind of like, she would do it a little bit as the movie progressed. That was the scene where she was like, look, you don't even ask me about, you know, my wants or anything. Everything is about you. And I was the one who fixed Serena's serve because you done messed it up. Like, don't forget, I was an athlete too. And I love that she had that moment. Like, she had to check him and remind him, like, don't get it twisted. You ain't the only one that know how to play these sports. Like, I do this. And, you know, and it was cool to see that when he wasn't training her, and, well, it was cool to see when he was focused on Venus and he saw that Serena was really good and she was actually really passionate about it, that her mom stepped up and was willing to train her when Venus was getting trained by the first coach. And you know what? Shout out to Richard, because he was like, look, I'm going to get these coaches to train them, and then I'm going to record these sessions so we can go back and rewatch it and see where you missed and see where you didn't, and then also peep some of the tea that the coach was giving in terms of his method of coaching. So I thought that was really smart to do. He was like, look, I'm trying to record, you know, and I love that. There was a moment that they recreated in the movie that I remember seeing, like, kind of like floating around the internet, when I believe it was Venus. She was being interviewed by this guy, and she was very confident, and the guy was like, you know, you sound so sure, this and that. And Richard steps in and is like, yeah, she got confidence. Like, leave that alone. She's a little girl. Let her be a girl, but let her be confident. She's a black girl. Like, yeah, but if this was somebody else, you wouldn't be trying to chip away at their confidence. Like, leave that alone. And him to be able to step in and, one, peep it, but then also defend her in that way was beautiful. And we need to see more of that. The only thing was that I thought it was interesting that they didn't recreate it exactly like how it was, because I believe they were indoors in the actual interview and then they were like outside somewhere in the movie. But either way, the scene was there and Will did a great job delivering it. So I was like, okay, I know this moment. And I'm glad that they put that into the movie, because that was a really good interview moment. Something else that I thought was really cool was the lesson of everything that glitter ain't gold. So after Venus is already starting to get a little bit of traction and some buzz, Nike offers her first deal, and I believe it was a deal for, let me look at my notes.
Man, what about on my notes?
I think it was $3 million. I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty sure it was $3 million. They offered her the deal for $3 million, but the thing that was really cool about that scene was that they asked Venus what she wanted to do, and it showed how much she's learned and how much they've taught her, because she knew not to take that deal. And it reminded me of the Master P skits on Solange's A Seat at the Table album, where Master P is saying his first deal they were offered, I believe, like 10 million. And his brother was like, yo, you should have took the deal, that'd have been a come up. But he like, nah. If this white man telling me I'm worth 10 million, I gotta be worth like 10 times that, like more than that. Like I gotta be worth like 40, 50, you know? But to see that that's what they're willing to offer, lets him know that somehow, some way, I can create more for myself by myself. Which I believe leads into FUBU, For Us Bias. That moment in the movie reminded me of that song, and I felt like that was very important because she declined the deal. And then the guy who was offering the deal tried to kind of like, you know, do a fear loss thing of, you know, or in a sense of urgency moments, thinking of like sales techniques. But basically, you know, to say, oh, the deal closes tonight, like you have to sign tonight. And they always just looking like, like, no. And so she turned down the deal. And because the thing was, she hadn't even started in the tournament yet. It was just the hype of her not doing any tournaments for several years and just training for years. This was her first match. And so, because it was her first match and she hadn't even played yet, she like, why would you offer me this? I ain't even play yet. I ain't even beat nobody. So then after she beat the person that she played, the offer went up to $4 million. And the coach was really hyped about it. But Richard was like, calm down, you know. That's not even, you know, it could probably go higher. And I felt like that was a lesson of, one, everything that glitter ain't gold. You're probably worth more than what people offer you, especially in the beginning of things. Be smart when it comes to like signing deals and whatnot. And then also, Richard was playing chess, not checkers. Okay? He knew that these opportunities were happening, and he had a plan leading all the way up until this moment in this time. And what ended up happening was, even after the tournament that she lost at the end of the movie, she ultimately signed a deal with Reebok for $15 million. And that was 9 months later. So there's also a lesson of patience too, and knowing how to play the game, and knowing that, okay, if you're offering me this, why are you offering me this? And what have I done to warrant this amount? And what can I do that I know I can do to make that value go up? You know? And so to see them play the game like that, and, you know, and even though she lost, people respected the fact that she had old girl shook, because she was playing like the top tennis player at the time. I forget her name. But she was young and she hadn't played in a while. But even though her opponent was doing some, you know, shenanigans, like going to the bathroom and really just trying to, like, they said it was like her icing her to kind of like lose her momentum of beating her ass, basically. And then that's when she started to get a leg up and started to win over Venus. But she learned the lesson. She learned that, okay, that's how people play, you know, in some of these tournaments. So even though it was a setback for her, it was a lesson learned. The people championed her anyway. Like, the audience was there for her. It was all these black girls afterwards that was excited to meet her after the tournament. And yeah, it was just beautiful to see. And she really saw that regardless of her not winning, that representation was important. And what was really dope about Richard's plan that I really enjoyed seeing was that he saw that even though at one point it was Venus and Serena being trained together, and then, you know, they could only focus on Venus at a period of time, Serena got it. Like, she didn't get jealous, but she was just like, damn, I want to practice with her. I want to start being in tournaments too. And there was a moment in the movie where she signed herself up for a tournament and they both won, you know. And Serena was, of course, supportive of her sister. She wanted Venus to win, and she loved to see that Venus was winning, but she wanted to play too. And Richard tells her, you know, I know you want to win. I know you want to get in this, but I got a plan for you. You know, him and his plans. He was like, I know you have a hard time being in being in Venus's shadow, but Venus will be the #1 player. But you will ultimately be the greatest tennis player of all time. And the man ain't lie. You know what I'm saying? He ain't lie. So just to see how he put that together to kind of like add that moment of adversity for her, to kind of toughen her up and make her hungry to win, he knew that he was making a beast. Because when she get on the field or on the courts, go time. That's it. She ain't playing no games. Destroying these motherfuckers out here. But yeah, it was cool to see that. And I love to see how he was doing all these plays with his team, but then also in the game of getting them into the industry, or not industry, but into the league, I guess. I'm not a tennis fan, so I don't really know how, the terminology. But he got them in and built the hype around them and kept them out the game. And even though they really wanted to play, especially Venus, she really wanted to be in tournaments during that time where she had that hiatus, where she was just training. You know, I felt like that was smart of him to do too, because it built anticipation for when she came back. So even though she wasn't in tournaments, and oftentimes, if you're not that good, you could get forgotten and lost in the sauce. But he kept enough hype around her to keep people intrigued. So when she did come back, there was, all these offers and all these people, looking to see what Venus was going to do. So yeah, my overall thing is that Richard was playing chess, not checkers, and there were so many lessons and gems and moments and empowerment tea in this film. And my camera is about to die. But the last thing that I wanted to say was that I waited to do this until after the Oscars because I wanted to talk about the Oscars briefly and say that Will Smith won the Best Actor award. And I felt like he deserved it for his performance in this film. And I loved his speech despite the whole situation that happened with Chris Rock. And what's ironic about that situation is that he goes up and hits Chris Rock in a way where he's protecting his wife, just like in this movie, how he took a hit because he was protecting his daughters in the film. So it's interesting to see how that played out. But I felt like his speech was beautiful about showing up to protect women and how he wants to be a beacon of love and how sometimes these moments test you and try you. and you know, people expect you to just take it. But sometimes you gotta get up and speak up for yourself. And I felt like that was the most important lesson, not only in this movie, but for Will that night, and just in life for anybody. Like, speak up. Don't let nobody play you or disrespect you. Now, be mindful about how you know, check people. You won't always gotta chin check them, but I mean, hey. But, you know, just speak up for yourself and stand your ground, and don't let nobody try to push you over, because this world is tough, and sometimes people will test it, and you might get it from every direction, especially people that you feel like was supposed to be beside you and actually really trying to knock you over for real. That's really the kicker, but that's a whole nother video. But my battery's about to die, and I just wanted to end on that note and say congratulations to Will and the whole cast, because they were amazing in this film, and I felt like there were many important lessons here. And let me know. Let's kiki in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoy the vibes, make sure you like and subscribe and share with other divine ones out there so we can build the tribe. Ooh, I like that. Okay, if you like the vibes, share and if you like the vibes, like and subscribe and share so we can build the tribe of the divine ones out there. It's your girl Narisse. I love you all. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this, you know, drops some gems, some uncut gems.
Uncut gems.
Right.
Do you know what?
Uncle Jam.
Alright, y'all. I'm signing out. Deuces, and I'll catch you in the next video.